You don't even remember when it started. Not exactly. It wasn't one bad day, one failure, one breakup. It was slower, like smoke leaking under the door of your life. At first, just a faint heaviness in your chest. Then the silence between your thoughts got louder. The things you loved felt far away. People kept talking, and you kept nodding. But inside, it felt like you were disappearing. You called it depression. Everyone does. But what if you're wrong? What if what you're feeling isn't the end of you, but the beginning? Carl Jung spent 6 years of his life descending into this exact darkness. He didn't call it a breakdown. He called it a descent into the self. And what came out of that descent became his most mysterious, dangerous, and sacred work. The Red Book. A book he never wanted published while he was alive. A book filled with madness, symbols, conversations with gods and shadows. And most of all, a message for people like you. You are not depressed. You are awakening. Let me be clear. This isn't spiritual fluff. This is a psychological exorcism. Because right now, you feel lost. Your passions feel dead. You wake up tired. You don't care about your goals. People ask you what's wrong, and you can't answer. You cry in private and fake strength in public. But here's the truth Jung discovered in his descent. Depression isn't always a malfunction. It's the soul withdrawing from a life it no longer recognizes as real. You're not broken. You're being called inward, dragged into the underworld of your own unconscious. And like Jung, you're meant to walk through this internal chaos, not to escape it, but to be transformed by it. You see, the Red Book wasn't just a diary. It was a map, a record of what happens when a human being stops performing and starts confronting everything they've repressed. Jung wrote it during what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. He saw visions. He heard voices. He met figures inside himself who shattered the man he thought he was. And what he found there was not insanity. What he found was truth. So now, let me ask you the question this video is built around. What if the reason you feel numb is because your current self has nothing left to say? What if your depression is not a chemical imbalance, but a soul imbalance? What if the life you've built, the roles, the titles, the goals, was never yours to begin with? And now the mask is rotting, and your soul is refusing to play along. This isn't dysfunction. This is a spiritual mutiny. Jung said something that should hit you in the chest. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But not you. Because if you've found this video, you're already starting to realize the pain isn't random. It's a message. Your depression is trying to tell you something, not just about your past, but about the false self you've become addicted to. Let me paint you a picture Jung would have understood. You're in a house. Every room is filled with people. You've smiled, played roles, kept the peace. You've tried to belong. But now, you've quietly stepped into the basement. The light is dim. You're alone. It's cold. This is where people panic. They run back upstairs, back to noise, comfort, distraction. But if you stay here, if you sit in this basement long enough, something strange happens. You start to hear whispers, not from outside, but from somewhere deep inside. And one of them says, I've been waiting for you. That voice? That's your real self. The one you abandoned to survive. The one who never wanted to be perfect, just whole. The Red Book was Jung's record of what happened when he didn't run back upstairs. He stayed. He sat in the dark. He talked to the chaos. And he didn't find answers. Not at first. He found confusion. He found and monsters inside his own mind. He found fear. He found madness. But through it all, he kept listening. And eventually, he found his soul. So what does this mean for you? It means maybe you don't need medication. Maybe you don't need to snap out of it. Maybe you don't need to fake a smile or fix your attitude. Maybe you just need to descend, to stop resisting, to let your old identity fall apart, to sit in the silence until the real you speaks. This is the purpose of this video, to flip the script on everything you've been told about your depression. You're not weak. You're not lazy. You're not doomed. You're being called, dragged, pulled inward by something older than society, older than your trauma, older than your thoughts. You're being summoned by your unconscious. And if you dare to go in, to really go in, you might not come back the same. But that's the point. So let me ask you one last time. What if you're not depressed? What if you're just finally hearing the voice you've been running from your whole life? And what if that voice is you think this darkness is personal, that it's your failure, that you're the only one lost in this fog? But what if I told you this feeling was never meant to be a diagnosis? It was meant to be a door. A door Carl Jung opened when he dared to let go of everything he believed about himself, his career, his theories, his identity, his sanity, and stepped into the abyss. The Red Book wasn't Jung's way of escaping the darkness. It was his way of making contact with it, of listening to it, and discovering what was hidden inside it all along. Let's break the illusion. In our modern world, we've sterilized depression. We've reduced it to chemistry, to serotonin levels, to buzzwords like self-care. But Jung knew something far more terrifying and liberating. The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of being. He believed the soul withdrew from consciousness not because it was broken, but because it was being ignored. Ignored by your performance, ignored by your attachments, ignored by your need to keep everything normal. So what did Jung do when the soul withdrew? He didn't fix it. He didn't run from it. He followed it. Into visions, into myth, into madness. The Red Book records his journey through symbolic landscapes, deserts, serpents, gods of war, divine mothers, towers, and ruins. He called this terrain the collective unconscious, a spiritual ecosystem older than your thoughts, your culture, even your name. And in it, he didn't just find chaos. He found messages. Let's explore what he saw, because it's directly connected to your current state. In the Red Book, Jung meets Fleiman, a wise, prophetic figure who guides him through the madness. Fleiman isn't real, but he's true. He represents the inner guide we all have, the one who doesn't speak until we go completely silent inside. Then there's the Red One, a shadowy, seductive force representing pleasure destruction, and suppressed desire. Jung doesn't fight him. He doesn't try to escape. He listens. Because these entities are not hallucinations. They are fragments of himself, parts of his psyche, forgotten, rejected, buried. And here's where the truth hits hard. Depression, in Jung's view, is not the absence of happiness. It's the invasion of truth. Truth about the fake friendships you maintained, the goals you chased that weren't yours, the versions of yourself you wore like armor just to feel safe. So the soul begins to revolt. But the revolt doesn't look like screaming. It looks like numbness, exhaustion, apathy, detachment. That's your psyche shutting off surface signals, because it needs you to go deeper. This is why Jung's Red Book experience is so relevant to you. He stopped treating the unconscious like a disease. He started treating it like a language of symbols, of dreams, of moods that come from nowhere, of emotions that don't respond to logic. What you call depression, Jung called an initiation, a psychic death. And like all deaths, it's messy. You lose motivation, you lose clarity, you lose people, you even lose your identity. But beneath the ashes, something else is trying to rise. A self that is real. A self that doesn't perform. A self that doesn't apologize. Now let's address something brutal. This awakening doesn't look pretty. In fact, it looks a lot like falling apart. You might isolate. You might cry for no reason. You might feel rage, shame, guilt, even spiritual nausea. You might stop wanting anything. You might even feel dead. But Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Because becoming real isn't just a choice. It's a sacrifice. You sacrifice being liked for being whole, being understood for being authentic, being comfortable for being alive. The hidden truth is this. Depression is the surface name for a soul in the process of radical realignment. And society wants you to medicate it, avoid it, distract it, because a person who awakens is dangerous. They can't be sold lies anymore. They don't chase fake love anymore. They walk away. They see through things. They live on truth, not approval. That's what the Red Book revealed. Not just visions, but freedom. So if you feel like you're going crazy, like your old world is dying, like you can't fake your smile anymore, don't panic. You're not broken. You're becoming someone who no longer plays dead to be accepted, becoming someone who no longer waits for permission to feel. You're not going backwards. You're not falling apart. You're just waking up inside a reality that was never meant to contain you. And that pain you feel, it's the pressure of a larger soul trying to fit inside a smaller life. It's the sound of your inner world cracking open. It's your unconscious screaming. This life no longer fits. Become something more. And that's not depression. That's awakening. No one tells you what happens after the awakening begins. They talk about healing. They talk about growth. But they never mention the part where you feel like you're slowly dying. Not physically, spiritually. Because when you finally stop pretending, when your soul starts pulling you inward, when the noise of the world fades, you're left with silence. And it's deafening. You thought the awakening would feel like light. But at first, it feels like loss. You stop wanting the things you once obsessed over. You stop relating to the people you used to laugh with. You walk into familiar rooms, and they feel foreign. The music you used to love now sounds empty. Your ambitions begin to crumble in your hands. You don't know who you are anymore. And that's terrifying. But it's also the only way forward. Because as Jung revealed through the Red Book, enlightenment doesn't come from imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that darkness isn't outside you. It's you. It's the parts you repressed to be liked, accepted, and safe. So here's what happens when your soul wakes up. 1. Your relationships start collapsing. Not all at once, but quietly, like bridges crumbling under weight. They were never built to carry. Suddenly, conversations feel shallow. You notice how you were always the one listening, always the one fixing, always the one bending. And one day, you just stop. You stop texting first. Stop laughing to keep the peace. Stop entertaining dead friendships. And when you do, they call you distant, cold, changed. They say, you're not the same. They're right. You're not. You finally stopped pretending. 2. You start grieving the old. You, yes. Grief. Because that version of you, the people pleaser, the perfectionist, the overachiever, the quiet one, the strong one, they were survival masks. And even though they hurt you, they protected you. They helped you navigate a world that rewarded obedience, not authenticity. So as you peel them off, one by one, don't be surprised if you feel empty. That emptiness isn't the end. It's a sacred space where something real is finally allowed to grow. 3. You experience emotional whiplash. One moment, peace. Next moment, rage. Then tears, then numbness. Then a strange clarity, followed by despair. You think something's wrong with you. But Jung would say, this is exactly right. Because as the unconscious rises, it brings everything. The childhood wounds, the suppressed guilt, the repressed anger, the fantasies you were too ashamed to admit. They rise not to destroy you, but to be seen. Until then, they ruled your life from the shadows. Now, they're surfacing, and that's chaos. But it's necessary chaos. 4. You lose interest in external validation. You stop chasing followers, money, applause, not because you don't care, but because it no longer fills you. You post something meaningful, and nobody reacts. And it doesn't ruin your day anymore. You say your truth, and if they misunderstand, you let them. You realize approval was the drug keeping your true self sedated. And now that you've detoxed, you're addicted to something else. Silence, solitude, self-respect. 5. You become a mirror. This is the most unexpected consequence. Your presence starts to trigger people, not because you said something wrong, but because your authenticity reflects everything they're hiding from. You speak calmly, and they feel judged. You set boundaries, and they feel abandoned. You tell the truth, and they feel exposed. You became a mirror, and people don't always like what they see in it. But it's not your job to make the reflection pretty. Carl Jung's awakening in the Red Book brought him to this exact place: isolation, vision, conflict, freedom. He lost friends. He was called mad. Even other psychologists distanced themselves from him. But he didn't go back. He couldn't. Because once you've seen your soul, you can't unsee it. And you can't go back to pretending you're okay, living without it. Let's be real. This phase of awakening can last weeks, months, years. There is no clear timeline, but it always leads to one thing: truth. And truth doesn't care about comfort. It comes with fire, but it leaves you with clarity. You'll start feeling lighter, more precise, more grounded. Not happy all the time, but real. And that's a kind of joy no smile can fake. So if you're here, in the dark, in the ache, in the confusion, know this: you are not alone. You are not failing. You are not dying. You are shifting. The old you, the mask, the performance, the illusion, is breaking. Let it, because something sacred is forming beneath the rubble. You've felt the ache. You've sat in the silence. You've lost the people, the energy, the identity. Now what? You're not the person you were, but you're not fully you yet either. You're in the in-between. And that, right there, is the most important place of all. This is where the new self is forged, not through willpower, not through affirmations, but through surrender. Let's be clear. Breaking free is not about escape. It's about integration. Because if you run from the pain, you'll recreate it in new costumes. If you deny the shadow, it will return through addiction, toxic love, or fake success. If you avoid the descent, you stay half awake your entire life. Carl Jung didn't become powerful because he avoided madness. He became powerful because he walked through it, consciously. And on the other side, he didn't return with theories. He returned with fire. So here's the path to breaking free, not as a coping mechanism, but as a soul rising from its own ashes. 1. Let go of the need to be understood. You've been explaining yourself your whole life, to your parents, to your friends, to society. But not anymore. You weren't born to be understood. You were born to be whole. That means some people will call you selfish now, cold, strange, distant. That's okay. To be misunderstood is the price of authenticity. Carl Jung. When you no longer seek validation, you become free, and your truth becomes its own protection. 2. Accept that you are not who you thought you were. Your identity was built in survival, in trauma, in pleasing, in projecting. You thought you were strong because you didn't cry. You thought you were kind because you never said no. You thought you were healed because you kept busy. Now you see it for what it was: compensation. And letting it go feels like death. Because it is. You're mourning a version of yourself who is just trying to be loved. Don't hate them. Don't shame them. Thank them. Then bury them. And walk forward. 3. Build a new ritual around your silence. In the Red Book, Jung didn't just think. He listened. He journaled. He painted. He walked. He meditated. He treated his silence like a temple, not a punishment. That's what you must do now. Don't escape the silence. Enter it. Let it speak. Let it echo. Let it show you what your mind has never dared to face. Silence is not empty. It's full of truth you've never heard, because the world was always too loud. 4. Create a new inner Torah. When the old world breaks, don't look to rebuild the same thing. Build different. Write a new code. Something like, I no longer trade authenticity for acceptance. I no longer chase what makes me feel empty. I protect my peace like it's sacred, because it is. I walk away without guilt. I express what's real, not what's easy. I stop explaining my worth. It is self-evident. I give love, but I never beg for it. Let this code become your anchor, because the outer world will try to pull you back, and when it does, your new self will smile and say, I don't live there anymore. 5. Transcend the label of depression. This might be the most controversial, but hear it fully. You are not your diagnosis. You are not your pain. You are not a victim of your chemistry. That doesn't mean your suffering isn't real. It means there's something deeper than it. The Red Book didn't offer a cure. It offered context. Depression, in Jung's language, wasn't an end state. It was a soul state, a phase of descent. And descent is sacred, because it prepares you for rebirth. So stop trying to go back to who you were before the darkness came. They were never you. Now you start doing things differently, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You say no without guilt. You leave the room when it drains you. You take breaks before you burn out. You stop talking when they stop listening. You stop performing for love. You let the silence carry your message. You no longer need the world to make you feel real. You've remembered. You were real before you were ever rewarded. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about removing everything that was never truly you. That's what Jung did. And when he came back from his inner hell, he didn't just write theories. He changed psychology. He changed history. Because he dared to face what most men run from: himself. You have that same power, but it won't come through struggle. It comes through surrender, through sitting in your own fire long enough to understand you were never broken. You were just buried. Now you rise, not perfectly, but truthfully. And now, not with smiles. Now you walk differently, with sight, not with arrogance, but with gravity. Not to impress, but to exist. You'll lose people. Let them go. You'll question yourself. Keep walking. You'll feel alone. But in that loneliness, you'll meet the only person who truly matters. You. The one who didn't run. The one who stayed in the storm. The one who sat with the shadows. The one who kept breathing through the silence. And now that you've seen the truth, you'll never trade it for comfort again. So here it is, Mawa, the final echo line, the one that lives in every soul brave enough to descend and return. You were not depressed. You were remembering who you are. And you're not done. You're just getting started.